In this episode, we're going to focus on what it means to contain and recover effectively during a security incident, because this is the point where good intentions can accidentally create new damage if actions are rushed or poorly coordinated. When something is actively happening, people naturally want to stop it immediately, but the most effective teams balance speed with discipline. Containment and recovery are not just about turning something off or cleaning something up. They are about limiting harm, restoring reliable operations, and doing it in a way that preserves enough evidence to understand what occurred. For beginners, it helps to think of this as managing a dangerous spill. You first prevent it from spreading, then you remove the source, then you clean and restore the space, and finally you figure out why the spill happened so it does not happen again. Those steps map closely to triage, containment, eradication, and lessons learned, even though the incident itself can be messy and may require you to revisit steps. The goal is to make decisions that reduce risk now while also protecting the organization's ability to learn and improve afterward. Triage is the decision-making process that helps a team prioritize actions when time and attention are limited. It is not about having perfect information. It is about quickly sorting what is most urgent and what can wait, based on likely impact and confidence. During triage, teams look for clues that suggest the incident is spreading, escalating, or affecting critical systems, and they focus first on limiting damage to the most important assets. A key beginner idea is that triage is a filter for noise, because incidents often arrive with confusing signals, false positives, and incomplete data. Good triage asks questions like what systems appear affected, what accounts appear involved, what business functions are at risk, and what evidence indicates active attacker behavior versus leftover artifacts. Triage also considers what actions could cause disruption, because stopping an incident by knocking out a critical service might create an availability crisis that is worse than the initial harm. When triage is done well, the team agrees on a working priority order and can coordinate containment steps without everyone chasing different theories. It sets the pace and direction for everything that follows. Containment is the set of actions that limits spread and reduces immediate harm while the team continues to investigate. Containment is often misunderstood as a single action, like disconnecting a computer from the network, but effective containment usually involves multiple coordinated steps that isolate the attacker's access paths. Containment can be short-term or long-term, and beginners should understand the difference. Short-term containment is about immediate stabilization, such as isolating a system, disabling a compromised account, or blocking suspicious traffic, so the situation does not worsen. Long-term containment is about creating safer operating conditions while deeper work proceeds, such as segmenting a network area, tightening permissions, or adding targeted monitoring to catch follow-on attempts. The challenge is that containment can interfere with investigation, because an attacker who notices changes may alter behavior, and system isolation may cut off logging that you still need. That is why containment decisions should be deliberate and documented, with a clear rationale for why each step reduces risk. Effective containment is not just decisive, it is careful, coordinated, and aware of side effects. One of the most important containment concepts is choosing actions that minimize damage while preserving options, and this often means using the least disruptive action that still reduces risk. For example, if suspicious activity is tied to one account, disabling that account might be a better first move than shutting down an entire server, especially if the server supports critical operations. If suspicious traffic is associated with a specific external destination, blocking that destination may reduce immediate risk while you learn more, but you should also be cautious because attackers can change destinations quickly. If an infected endpoint is suspected, isolating it from sensitive internal systems might be a better immediate step than wiping it instantly, because wiping can destroy evidence needed to understand how the infection started. This is where coordination matters, because containment actions should align with the overall incident goals and should be communicated clearly to the right stakeholders. When containment is haphazard, teams can accidentally knock over the wrong domino, causing outages, alert storms, or data loss. When containment is thoughtful, the team slows the attacker's ability to act while maintaining enough stability to proceed with confidence. Eradication is the process of removing the attacker's foothold and the root cause of the incident. and it often requires more than deleting a file or resetting a password. Beginners sometimes imagine eradication as a cleaning step after containment, but in reality, it is a careful search for persistence and underlying weaknesses. Persistence is any mechanism that allows an attacker to regain access after initial access is removed, such as hidden accounts, scheduled tasks, unauthorized keys, or altered configurations. Root cause includes the vulnerabilities or process gaps that allowed the incident to occur, such as missing patches, weak authentication, exposed services, or overly broad permissions. Effective eradication requires you to understand how the attacker got in and what they changed, because removing one visible artifact without addressing the entry path invites recompromise. It also requires disciplined tracking, because incidents may involve multiple systems, and it is easy to fix one while missing another. Eradication can also involve hard choices, like rebuilding systems from known good sources rather than trying to surgically remove every change. The goal is to reach a state where the attacker no longer has access, no longer has hidden footholds, and the original weakness has been addressed in a meaningful way. Recovery is the process of returning systems and services to normal operation with confidence that the environment is stable and safe. Recovery is not just bringing things back online. It is bringing them back in a controlled way so you can detect problems quickly if they reappear. A common beginner mistake is to rush recovery because of business pressure, but rushing can reintroduce compromised systems or miss lingering access paths. Effective recovery often involves staged restoration, where you prioritize critical services, monitor closely, and validate that controls are functioning. Validation can include confirming that known indicators of compromise are no longer present, that accounts and permissions are correct, and that monitoring is generating expected signals. Recovery also includes restoring data from backups when needed, and that introduces another set of concerns, like ensuring backups are clean and ensuring restored systems are patched and hardened before they are exposed again. Communication is part of recovery, too, because stakeholders need to know what is back, what is still limited, and what risks remain under observation. The best recovery plans treat restoration as a measured process that balances operational needs with security assurance. A useful concept for beginners is the idea of confidence levels during recovery, because you rarely move from zero to certainty in one step. Early recovery might be about achieving basic stability, like stopping active harm and restoring essential services. Later recovery is about increasing confidence, such as confirming that no unauthorized access remains, that affected systems are rebuilt or cleaned appropriately, and that controls are improved. This is also where monitoring becomes critical, because recovery without visibility is like reopening a store without checking whether the burglar is still inside. Teams often increase logging and alerting temporarily during recovery to catch recurrence quickly, and they watch for signs of attacker adaptation. Recovery also includes documenting changes made, because you need a clear record of what was altered during the incident to support later review and to avoid configuration drift. For beginners, the takeaway is that recovery is a journey from fragile to stable, and it should be paced by evidence rather than optimism. A well-run recovery feels calm and methodical, even if the incident itself was stressful. Containment and eradication also have an important relationship with evidence, because the choices you make can either preserve or destroy the story of what happened. If you wipe systems too early, you might lose the ability to determine how the attacker entered, what they accessed, and what they changed. If you leave systems running too long without containment, you might allow continued harm or data loss. The balance is to collect what you need while reducing immediate risk, and that often means making early evidence captures before major changes, then continuing to collect logs and observations throughout the response. Documentation discipline matters here, because in the heat of response, people may take actions quickly and forget details, but those details later become essential. Even small items like timestamps, account names involved, and the order of actions can influence whether the team correctly understands causality. This is why teams often keep an incident timeline as they work, because it helps them see whether attacker activity correlates with certain actions and whether containment steps had the intended effect. Evidence is not just for legal cases. It is for learning and for proving to yourself that you really fixed the problem. Lessons learned is the phase where the organization turns a stressful event into improved resilience. And it is often the most neglected phase, even though it can produce the biggest long-term benefit. Lessons learned begins with a clear review of what happened, what worked, and what did not. And it should be grounded in evidence and timelines rather than memory and blame. The goal is to identify root causes, including both technical weaknesses and process gaps, and then turn those into specific improvements. Improvements might include better logging, clearer escalation paths, faster patching, stronger authentication, better segmentation, or training that helps staff recognize and report suspicious activity earlier. Lessons learned should also evaluate communication, because many incidents cause confusion not only from attacker actions, but from unclear internal updates and unclear decision authority. Another important outcome is updating incident playbooks and checklists based on real experience, because real incidents reveal where the plan was incomplete or unrealistic. When lessons learned is done well, the next incident is handled faster, with less disruption and more confidence. A key point for beginners is that lessons learned should result in ownership and follow through, not just a meeting and a document that no one uses. It is common for teams to agree on improvements and then get pulled back into daily work, leaving the same weaknesses in place until the next incident repeats the lesson. Effective organizations assign owners to actions, set timelines, and measure completion, because security improvement is operational work, not just analysis. Lessons learned also helps reduce fear and blame culture, because it frames incidents as opportunities to improve systems and processes rather than as personal failures. That culture matters because people report suspicious events faster when they are not afraid of punishment for raising an alarm. It also matters because teams collaborate better when they trust that the goal is improvement, not finger-pointing. If you keep that mindset, lessons learned becomes a source of strength rather than a source of conflict. Over time, that is how organizations build maturity, by learning systematically from real stress tests. When you think about containment and recovery as a whole, the big idea is disciplined progress from uncertainty to stability, guided by Triage, shaped by containment, completed through eradication, and improved through lessons learned. Triage helps you decide what matters first. Containment limits damage while you learn, eradication removes both footholds and causes, and recovery restores operations with increasing confidence. Lessons learned ensures the cost of the incident buys future resilience instead of just being a loss. For a beginner, the most important skill is not memorizing a sequence, but understanding why each phase exists and how choices in one phase affect the next. If you contain too aggressively without evidence care, you may lose the ability to eradicate fully. If you eradicate without understanding root cause, you may invite recompromise during recovery. If you recover without monitoring and validation, you may not notice recurrence until it becomes severe. And if you skip lessons learned, you almost guarantee repetition. Operating containment and recovery effectively is about balancing speed, safety, and learning, and that balance is what turns incident response into a reliable capability rather than a series of improvised emergencies.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.